And we are live.
Here we are.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You are drinking, there's your coffee. You are drinking cold Elderstone butter coffee. I am drinking warm Elderstone butter coffee.
I like both, but the cool, well, it's turning into fall time here. So the cool drinks season is going away for sure. It's still like 50 some degrees and it's almost the middle of September.
Well, that's warm. I mean, you could call it cold, but once it gets 0 around here, it's going to be...
Oh, that would be amazing. But it will be that in our greenhouse.
That'll be sweating weather.
Yeah. Here, ching ching,
Oh,
baby.
geez.
Oh, yeah.
Love you. That is Elderstone from Native Root Coffee. This
Everybody
is...
didn't see you do that like
I did
80s.
I did a downward fist pump. Yeah.
Yes.
This is the J&T Marital Arts Podcast with John and Tara Bachland.
Yep.
I'm John. You're Tara.
I'm Tara, and Maggie's here today.
Maggie is sitting on a chair next to me. That is her special perch.
Yes.
She's within arm's reach, and she is happy. Maggie is our cat, one of our cats.
Yep. She's laying on your shirt, so it's extra special spot. She's a perfect kitty.
Yeah. Our cats mostly like my clothes after I've worn them for a day and sweated in them and done work in them. And then if I drop a shirt on the floor and I come back in a little bit, there's a cat laying on it.
Well, John, it's my favorite too.
I see you fighting for the shirt. Is that what it would look like?
No, but sometimes Maggie will hop up on the sofa next to you, and if she wasn't so cute and sweet, we would be fighting over our spot next to you on the sofa.
Yeah. Well, we're up and running. This is the homesteading cast. This is yesterday we talked a little bit about homesteading, and yesterday we went out and did our first official walk around layout of our entire property. You brought me and showed me some where we have a massive crop naturally growing of Solomon's. Yeah, I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
Solomon seal. Nobody can get onto our property.
No.
We've got guard dogs, guard horses, guard cows, guard goats, and I'm a guard and you're a guard, and we've got guns.
And guard kitties.
No, we don't have the livestock. We have kitties. Our chicken coop is going to be done in a few weeks, and our chickens are showing up in October.
Yeah, the week of October 4th.
Yeah.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about what you like about chickens, Tara.
The fresh eggs are amazing. I haven't been around so much. Last time we had chickens, I wasn't around as much. I was more involved in the logistical stuff, organizing.
Mm-hmm.
So this time I'll be much more involved in the actual upkeep, raising, and so forth. But what I like about chickens is that I just showed. Oh, you're logging in with your phone. That's what I was saying.
Sorry.
So beautiful. Also walking around, hanging out. It's really nice to see in the backyard when, just seeing the chickens moseying around. When you're outside with them, the sound they make is really soothing. Just their clucking and hanging out, and then the occasional rooster crow, or not so occasional.
Yeah, it's still recording. I don't know what that warning is.
Yeah.
What was the bling?
I don't know.
Well, we might have a guest coming in, but we'll just keep going until we can see him.
I think that sound was in a different app.
No, okay, keep telling me about chickens. I'll do the computer stuff.
I think this time when we get the chicks too, we'll make sure to spend more time with them. Like we had friendly chickens, but I think I in particular will spend more time so they get used to people. And I think for me, even the last number of times we've had chickens, I've still been hesitant around them, mostly because I wasn't around so much. I have a really healthy respect for animals. So whether it's chickens, I mean,
Cows. We were with cows the other day.
Oh my gosh, cows, horses for sure.
Yeah.
Goats.
That cow, when he or she licked your hand, the tongue was almost as big as your cat.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, we talked about getting some horses. We were actually offered a couple of horses for free. Some very, very nice horses, some heritage heirloom horses, which sounds really funny, but a lot of people don't understand about horses and where they come from. And these horses have been traced back to some of the oldest horses out of Africa. And the horses we were offered are in America. And we just don't have the time because horses are a full-time gig. We don't have the time for horses, and we don't have the facilities built out yet. We do have a lean-to kind of shed that we could convert into a nice horse barn, and with a couple of stalls. But just saw Meggie, we've got an issue. He had trouble jumping up there. So anyway, got our animals. We got live homesteading maintenance going on here.
Yeah, well, our kitties are a little older, so we're just keeping a good eye on them.
Yeah,
they need more attention than the little young spry ones.
I think you know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna restart this, but the link was. I'm gonna keep it going. I don't know. I think it's fine.
Oh, it was your Facebook that made that noise.
Okay.
Yep. So sorry about this, guys. We're just getting used to the live casting software, and you just gotta actually try it out to test it.
Well, the mic is still recording. It just it's telling us to end the live or finish live. You're live casting in another browser window. So let's do this. Let's just close the other browser window for some odd reason.
Yeah.
Another browser window open.
But you logged in on your
No, I undid it.
Well, then that warning came up when you logged in on your phone.
Yes.
So it's letting you know that. Okay. So no horses. We've got a lot of stuff to set up here first. But interesting, when we went to that farm right nearby, that we went to this permaculture
Event
tour.
Yeah.
They don't have horses. They don't even have. She's like, I'm trying to find a way to get a donkey. Because they're strictly, you only have animals that are useful. Mm-hmm. So they're, so that, which makes sense permaculture wise, right? There's, everybody
animals that can contribute.
Yep. So the dogs, they treat their dogs like pets, but they very much are working animals.
But their dog was utility. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, both their dogs, but their main dog, their bigger dog, was trained to keep the chickens out of the garden.
Yeah.
Which was very interesting. And then a person that showed up to the permaculture event brought a dog who's a friend of theirs, and that dog tried to go in the garden, and we saw the permaculture people's dog keep that dog out of the garden for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like he was like, hey, she was like, yeah, you're not supposed to come in here. The garden is domain of me. Mm-hmm. And the dog was very friendly with the chickens unless they tried to go into the garden because the chickens will eat your crops. So
yes.
A lot of times, which is strange because our chickens never went in our gardens and ate anything.
Strawberries.
They pecked at some strawberries. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I retract never. Mm-hmm. And all right. So
we have testing out the software still. So having animals around that, are helpful and can contribute. I was kind of surprised when you were talking about a horse because you've had a horse before and you have mentioned
yes.
how much work they are and how much you have to be around. And so I was even surprised at one point that we were having that discussion.
And how jealous they get. So I had a horse, and my horse was a 3/4 Arabian, and she was, obviously huge, but slight for a horse that you would think me as a big guy would be able to ride. And she ran like the wind. I couldn't believe it. And I would get on my motocross bike to go train on my track, and she would get so jealous. She saw my bike as a horse. I was riding my bike.
Yeah.
And she would stomp and snort and buck and run around the pasture and whinny, and it was crazy. You know, after a while she got used to it because I had to train every day, but you know, it was interesting to see. Now, there's some other facts about chickens. And chickens can remember, I think it was up to 15 or so names of other chickens that you name.
Really?
Yeah. So,
where'd you find this?
well, it just popped up the other day.
Are we going to name our chickens? Probably, since, well, we are getting a variety pack. I don't think that's what they call it, but an assortment. And so, because it's just really neat to see the variety out there. Although one of the best layers, if not the best, are Red Star. So I got an assortment, which includes a few Red Star, and then I got Ericanas, also known as Americanas. They're the ones that lay the Easter eggs.
Yeah.
And so they're the kind of bluish green color. And so I got a couple of those, and then we got 5 roosters. Like we discussed the other day, you want to have roosters for fertilized eggs. And so we're starting with 5 because you got to pick out the ones that behave well.
Yeah.
The ones that you want. And that is the tough part of homesteading and having your own animals, is sometimes you got to get rid of a few. And even when they're done laying, their peak of laying is around 1 year, and then it tapers off. We've had pretty good production for, almost up to 2 years. And then we have donated the spent hens, as you might say, to a local family that will either keep raising them while they're laying, or they'll use them as broilers. So there are if you don't want to dirty your own hands, there are multiple ways for the chickens to keep benefiting someone. And it's a really different way of life. I have a teacher that I work with in the Institute. So I run a online herbal education site, and she, for a couple of years, they did their own homesteading. They put up the fencing, did pigs, chickens, and her daughters were, I think, approaching teenagerhood. So they were old enough to help out, but not in the teenage years quite yet. And they would butcher their own chickens. They raise their own pig, butcher their own pig, and preserved and so forth. And I really admired her for that. That, first of all, it takes a great amount of effort. But from what I could gather, she was really illustrating to her kids that, this food comes from somewhere. And it does not come without sacrifice. And that, when you are that close to your food, you think differently.
Yeah, totally. So a couple things. We have had chickens in the past, and we know about this. So chickens, I found this thing I just looked up: delayed gratification, memory, object permanence, counting personality. They're empathetic and manipulative. So they're kind of like people.
But they can only count to a certain number, right?
Right. It's all very limited. They have the ability for some degree of self-control, which is tested as delayed gratification, which is hilarious. So humans can recognize thousands of different people. Chickens can recognize different humans. Different chickens are different. And we've known that because we've had very, very smart chickens, very inquisitive chickens. Like if I was outside doing something, I'd turn around and a chicken would be.
Was it Henny Penny, one of those?
Yeah, she'd be right. We would always call her Henny Penny, whatever. And she'd be right there. And I think those are the kinds of chickens that people like bring into their house. We don't do that with chickens, but there's lots of people they'll pick out the familiar chickens, the ones that are doing this high level of recognition and interaction, and they'll make them pets, and they'll bring them in the house and stuff. So,
well, especially when you interact with them a lot from the beginning, like about any animal,
yeah,
they become very friendly.
it's hard to name them when, like, our last batch were all the Red Star. It's hard to name. You could name the rooster and one or two of the chickens that have different characteristics because they looked identical.
Yeah, and so like personalities, there'll be a couple broody hens that just love to collect the eggs and raise the chicks, and so that's where the even counting the number to a certain number, they can basically count, are all my chicks here?
Yeah.
And that's about it. We did have Mr. Rogers talk about personality.
Man, well, Mr. Rogers was a bantam chicken. He was a rooster.
So bantam, and like bantam weight, they're smaller.
They're small, and he had a complex, and he wanted to be the top dog.
Now, we called him Mr. Rogers. Sorry for interrupting, but
it looked like he was wearing a little vest.
Yeah, he had a black and white checker pattern to his feathers.
Yeah, so we joked around that he was wearing a vest, and it looked like Mr. Rogers. So we called him that. And he would sound the alarm about every half hour.
Yeah.
And all the chickens would run into the coop. And he didn't do it on a regular basis every day, but he was trying to mount the hens, and he couldn't because he was too small. And I think he was getting frustrated. So then they would have a certain, kind of like that, and all the hens would run into the coop. And we decided after several weeks we couldn't have that anymore. And so he became dinner.
We put up with it for a long time.
Yeah.
But, finally we're like, we don't need our hens being all anxious all the
Frantic
time.
And scared and all that. So.
Well, I think the hesitancy was because he was one of 3 roosters for a long time. And we know that if you only have 2 roosters, they're going to keep fighting each other.
Yeah.
And so we're like, well, Mr. Rogers is keeping the numbers right at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, because we had 3 at that time.
I think that's what it was, because we were like, okay, do we get rid of Mr. Rogers and then have 2 rooster issues?
Yeah. Like we talked about a little bit in yesterday's podcast, you got to have an odd number. So you got to have 1 rooster, or you've got to have 3, or 5. You can't have, 5 is too many if your flock is under, 40. 5 is way too many. So we had about 20 hens with 1 rooster, and I don't know the exact numbers, but that sounds about right to me, and it looks about right.
Yeah, I think it's 1 rooster for about 12 or 15 hens off the top of my head. But
if you have too many roosters, your hens won't have any feathers.
Yes.
Because when they mount them, they actually literally jump on their back and grab them with their feet, their chicken feet, and their claws.
So I deliberately got the roosters that I got are the Red Stars, because they're just a nice demeanor chicken.
Yeah.
And so, for example, I could have ordered Araucana.
They take you out to dinner before they mount you.
They're gentler, I would imagine.
They'll be like,
they're more gentlemanly.
Good day, Henny Penny.
Yes. And so, for example, I got 5 extra hens that are Americanas.
Yeah.
They lay the greenish blue eggs.
Yeah.
But specifically chose Red Star males.
Yeah.
So because the Americana males are way more aggressive. You said that they act kind of like a pheasant or something.
They're more wild. Yeah. They had no problem staying outside all night long. They just fly up in a tree and roost. They have that instinct a lot more than the Red Stars. It's kind of bred out of them. The Red Stars are bred to lay an egg a day. And that's really nice. So, if you got 20 hens, you get 20 eggs a day, usually maybe 18 or 19. But that's really, if you're trying to have good egg production and you're trying to, you might want to sell some eggs to neighbors or whatever. That's a great chicken to have, is the Red Star.
Definitely.
I think I would rather, if we were we're in the country and we're wild, in kind of a wild area. We have fields bordering 2 sides of our property. If it was more wild, like there was woods instead of fields, I'd want Araucana roosters because they'd be way more aggressive towards any varmint or any, a fox or anything, a skunk that tried to come in. Skunks, fox, possums, large rats, not small rats. Small rats, the chickens will attack them and eat them. But large rats are a problem. Large rats will try and kill a chicken. If they get them in the nest, when they're sleeping, that's when they could kill them. But then there would only be one because all the other chickens would wake up.
Another good laying breed is the Rhode Island Red. So just remember Red
Yeah.
Star or
Yeah.
Rhode Island Red.
Yeah.
And Murray McMurray, they have a section like the best layers. So they have a pretty good guide there. And at this point, so you want to also plan ahead. So we know we don't have too much to do for the coop. Well, relatively.
Yeah.
But we're later in the year and they won't ship to certain areas like over the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely want to take a look at that. Fortunately, I was okay with I already wanted a mixed laying group. So that's basically all that they had available at this point in the numbers that we wanted.
Yeah. And that's McMurrayHatchery.com. Oh, sorry, it's McMurrayHatchery.com. McMurray Hatchery.com. Great company to work with. Their chickens have always been, I think we've only had one sickly chick, but I don't think it died, if I remember right. It was just probably dehydrated from the trip.
Yeah.
But you get them right after they pack them right after they hatch. When you get them, you have to introduce them to water.
Yeah.
You have to dip their beak in water so that they know, oh, okay, that's something I like. And then their instincts totally take over.
Yep. Yep.
And
then they know.
And we feed them, and then we start dropping some mealworms in there and some crickets in there, and when they're a little bit older.
Yeah.
After a couple weeks, they
Yeah, they
love
get treats.
chase. Oh man, you drop crickets, and they just go nuts. I ordered a bunch of crickets when we had our coop, we had our full coop a few years ago, and it was the middle of winter, and I was ordering mealworms and crickets just so they could get some live insects.
Mm-hmm.
And I just take a box of those crickets and just throw them in the coop, and the crickets would scatter, and the chickens were going nuts, and they're chasing everything. Then they would come to the door and be like, "Hey, what do you got now?"
Mm-hmm.
They're all excited. So yeah, our coop is a already standing structure. It's a shed that's non-insulated.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to insulate the shed because we have winter here, and then we'll put up 2 or 3 heat lamps in there so it doesn't freeze. It doesn't get that cold. The chickens, as they poop on the floor, you put straw in there, and that will start composting. It'll create heat. Mm-hmm. So you get heat from all the chicken poop and the straw on the floor, and then you get heat from the lamps. And then, the one side will have a door with a window, and that's facing the east, so it'll get morning sun up into almost afternoon sun. So that will also help heat the coop in the winter, that the sun is coming in. Mm-hmm. So little subtle things that you don't think of, that you don't need a heater.
Yeah, if there's enough chickens, they'll actually keep it warm enough.
And they'll huddle.
Yeah.
So
if there are enough chickens in the right amount of space. But when they're chicks, you definitely have to provide the heat. And we'll share some of our favorite resources too as we're preparing as it gets close, because there are a lot of details, but we're going over the details right now.
Yeah. Well, there's where do you get your feed? There's feeders, the types of feeders, waterers, all this kind of stuff.
The farm that we went to, they taught their chickens how to drink from a spout.
It's like a live tap, kind of like a gerbil. It's got a little ball bearing in it. Yeah. That doesn't work over the winter, but you got to bring water in the winter.
And we put apple cider vinegar and garlic in the water for the chickens keep them healthy, good for the digestion.
Yep, healthy and strong.
We don't get I don't choose for the chicks to be vaccinated. Right. When I order the chicks.
Right. We never had. The only way any of our chickens have ever died is because of a varmint.
Yeah. Yep. So, and actually I have a lot more herbal knowledge now too, and chickens respond well to herbs. Yep. So we're definitely more prepared.
Yeah. And our coop is a 9 Oh, it's probably a 10 by 12, a 9 by 12, or a 10 by 12 shed.
Mm-hmm.
We could stand up inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to build a little entryway, so we have just a small area where food can be kept inside the coop. The chickens can't get to it. We keep all the food in steel garbage cans so that rats and mice and varmints can't get into it.
Would plastic work, or would they chew
They'll
through the
chew
plastic?
right through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't use plastic. No.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's something important to note.
Oh, I suppose I take that kind of stuff for granted, but
Yeah.
and then we're building a caged-in run. So it'll be a fenced-in run, just a 2x4 structure that will actually be bigger than the coop. So that is, we can let them out in the winter because I'll put plastic over it so they can get outside, and I'll do the same thing. I'll throw the crickets in there, I'll throw the mealworms in there, so they get outside, they run around a little bit, and when they get chilly, they'll run back inside, and that'll be kind of fun. We hadn't done that in the winter in the past, and I just thought of that for this time, this round of chickens. So.
Well, for the most part, we do free range chickens, but chickens, except for I've heard of an Icelandic breed that it doesn't mind the snow, but otherwise, most chickens don't like the snow. So it kind of feels, like you're not doing a good thing by keeping them in the coop all winter, but that's what they would prefer. But the run, if it has plastic over it, well, first of all, it seems cruel to cage an animal, but like that, but you're also protecting it. So it's a catch-22.
Well, they like to be caged, so they go into the coop on their own at night because they want to be protected. Mm-hmm. They know. I mean, the chickens are on alert all the time.
Yeah.
They're constantly, they're constantly looking around. They're looking for bugs. So their eyes are on the sides of their head. Mm-hmm. So I think they can look at bugs and they can look at the sky at the same time. Yeah. So that because they kind of tilt their head and they look, and if they see something, they tilt their head and they put one eye towards it.
Yeah, or if you're coming nearby, they'll turn their head.
Yeah.
They don't look. Well, sometimes they'll look straight, but usually
generally only if they're running towards you.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, but they know the birds. If a big raven or crow flies over, they run under the brush. They get under the little trees.
Or we leave the coop open, and so they'll run into the coop.
Yeah, they're always going in and out all day.
Yep.
They love that. They're not caged, not like that. But when you shut that door at night, they love it and they go to sleep. Mm-hmm. And when you use your heat lamp, everybody can figure this out easily. But you use a red coated heat lamp, so it's infrared light at night, and then they can sleep. Mm-hmm. If you use white light, they won't sleep. You'll mess up because they awake to the daytime. That's why we put a window in the coop, because they awake to the sun coming up, and then the rooster starts growing. Mm-hmm.
So the run is a good way. So when it's not so cold, you can leave the door open and they can run in and out.
Because it's fenced in.
Yeah, and particularly when they're pullets, so they're like teenagers. They have to learn the territory, and so you actually keep them confined for a while until they learn the territory.
Yeah.
And then you still have ones that will roam to the neighbors.
Hey, you got a chicken over here. Yeah.
Have you thought or considered other animals?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, when we were walking the field yesterday, I thought of goats again.
Yeah.
To just clear the field and keep it, we'd have to fence our gardening away from the goats, but they would clear that field in several weeks and keep it trimmed.
Yeah. So fencing is a big deal, and as I started looking at fencing a couple weeks ago when you were talking about horses, and fencing is really particular to the animal. Mm-hmm. You need certain fencing for certain animals. I wonder if with goats you could get the movable fencing, but it's like it has to be meshed because they're like tricksters and they can really get out. But I wonder if just as long as it's tall enough.
Yeah, well, what you do with goats is you put all their climbing stuff in the middle of the pen. In the middle of the area, so they love to climb, right?
Yeah.
So if they have enough things to climb on, they'll just the billy
out
goat
there.
will just stand on it all day long if you get a billy. That's billies could be a problem. You'll find them wanting to ram you. They'll come up behind you and give you a good butt in the butt. And if they're possessed, you'd have to raise them from a kid. Baby goats are called kids, so you'd have to raise them from a kid, and then it'd be your buddy. But I think they still get a little rammy because it's just part of their instinct. So yeah, there's that, and you can tie them up. So you can go out, you can offer the billy a treat, and then kind of walk him over, and then latch him up. Put a collar on him, latch him up while you're in there doing other stuff, and then go over, offer him another treat, and then unlatch him. I mean, there's tricky ways to deal with animals. So
you think, yes, we have a lot of, quote, weeds. There are actually amazing herbs in there as well.
Yeah.
But what is it, like an acre and a half, a couple of acres of tall weeds?
Yeah.
So that a goat is a sustainable way of getting rid of the weeds and then having your land fertilized at the same time.
Right. So goats, chickens. We're not getting goats this year. Have I thought of goats? Yes, absolutely. I've even thought of a couple of heritage breed cows. I haven't eaten beef in 32 years. You haven't even eaten beef in 20 years, 21 years. It was probably 33 years now that I haven't eaten beef or pork. And we have very, very little dairy. I went off dairy for a really long time because of antibiotics and because of the effects of most dairy. But I've actually thought of a couple of those, like the Scottish Highlander dwarf cows or something, whatever they are,
Yeah.
and they would be for meat, but they would also trim out the field and keep everything down, because we've got 3.5 acres almost that we could field. So that's like 2 cows, because they remember we were at the permaculture farm and it was about an acre a cow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'd have to substitute. We'd have to substitute in the winter, and if you had the smaller cows, they would eat less, But we'd have to substitute in the winter, and then we'd have to build a pen, and it'd have to be big enough. Cows are different than horses, so
Different kind of fence, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and we could let them out in the field in the winter too, but because they'd want to get out and walk around. But so let's get on to the greenhouse. We went and laid out where we're going to put the greenhouse yesterday, and I told you we're going to put a side garden on the greenhouse, and you wanted it on the south side, so we'll make it. It'll be we'll make it twice as wide as the greenhouse, so it'll stick out on both sides. Yeah, and then you have a lot of room to take your starters and put them in, and if you want to grow some stuff there long term, you can. Or maybe it's a nice flower bed or whatever.
Yeah, I think it'll serve a nice purpose. I just liked the idea initially. What came to mind here, though, so we're putting it in a place where the building that we're in will block a lot of the wind. So we're talking about a north-south orientation.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, even with it set back like that, if the door on the north side would still allow a lot of north wind to come in. If we should maybe turn the orientation a bit so that maybe it's northeast.
Yeah,
or
and
west.
we can figure that out. Figure that out. But I was thinking too, if you planted some really great like pollinator attracting flowers in part of that bed behind to attract the pollinators, and then they would also migrate to the garden. And yeah, we have mostly goldenrod and a couple other flower types, maybe not many. There's like those little white flowers. I don't know what they are.
The melilot.
Okay. And but yeah, it'd be nice to kind of have a pollinator blend to attract, and then we get to see the bees and
well, this winter, so a lot of the doing will be this fall, but this winter we'll plan what we're going to plant we can start with some cool weather stuff in the greenhouse.
Yeah.
And we'll plan where we're going to plant some fruit trees.
Yeah.
And look at our zones, as they call it in permaculture. And so, where is our fruit tree zone going to be? Because it's really important, because the trees are such a relatively permanent
Yeah.
crop. And so, I had pointed out yesterday, how about here? And it was along the road. And you're like, it's along the road. And I don't remember why you thought that was not such a good idea.
Well, I don't want our stuff being accessible. We do live in the country. There's not many vehicles that go by, but you've been out there and you've heard, cars ripping by and guys doing donies in the road. And we got some big gouges out in the road right now because somebody in a hopped up 4-wheel drive truck came out and they did donies until it ripped into the gravel. And so, if we had some really nice looking budding fruit trees, I could see people rolling up at night and helping themselves,
Yeah.
although that's kind of dangerous,
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about varmints. And when I say varmints, I mean, out here, if we had goats, so we have coyote, we have probably kind of some of the varmints of the mink family. We might have, little kind of rodent hunter killer type varmints, I call them.
Yeah.
We have skunks. We have raccoons. We have possum. We don't bother with the raccoons and the possum, but if a skunk gets into the coop, they'll just kill everything.
Well, a possum will kill a chicken.
We haven't had possum problems, but yeah, possums will kill a chicken and eat them too. But generally, they only take one. Skunks seem to kill for the killing. They're kind of strange that way. I've never seen a skunk eat a chicken, but or hear of a skunk eating a chicken.
So as we convert the shed to a coop, we'll be thinking of that too, where to put in either sheet metal or wire.
Yeah, I'm putting sheet metal on the floor and into the side a little bit. So the studs are open right now. So we'll run sheet metal into the side there of the bottom because, if the varmints chew in, they chew from the bottom. And then they might even make a hole from the bottom up into the side. So we just put it up high enough, maybe a foot, so they don't come in. Yeah. A lot of things to think about. But we also have mountain lion. So if we and you've seen the tracks, we've seen the evidence of not the kill, but the attack of a mountain lion attacking a deer. They strike fast, they hit hard, they lay on the ground until the deer can't move anymore or breathe, because they generally grab the throat and suffocate them to death. And then they drag them away. And we saw the evidence of that. There's a trail that goes through here that used to be a railroad, and it's tarred now. And you always see me looking at the tracks. You see me looking at the routes, and I look for deer, or I look for tracks, big paw prints or small paw prints like coyote paw prints, that kind of thing. And we saw an area where it's obvious to me that a mountain lion killed a deer. There was no blood, but they don't rip them apart there. They generally haul them away. They might pull them up into a tree. They might bring them nearby where they live. If it's a she, and it probably is, and she's got cubs, and if it's a bonus year, we're gonna have more mountain lions. So we've got to watch out, and coyotes will take down a human. Mountain lion would take down a human. Generally, they're not attacking humans if they've got plenty of food, and there are a lot of deer around here too, a lot of rabbits, that kind of stuff. But I was thinking about for goats, goats are pretty formidable.
They would be formidable to a mountain lion?
Well, they can run, right? And a billy goat would face off. So if you had a billy. But coyotes would be my main concern. With chickens and goats, I think we'd probably start seeing the coyotes.
They would be like, "Oh, there's a nice buffet over
Well,
there."
especially if we got dwarf goats, if you get the
Yeah.
cute ones,
It's like a little fluffer dog.
you can have some problems. Yeah. So we were supposed to talk about the greenhouse, and we ended up back on animals. I ended up there, but I was thinking, we have the high ground here, so I only have to stick a rifle out the window and
usually a warning shot will take care of.
Yeah, well, that's what you do with
keep them away, but
it did keep them away. That's what I did with the coyotes when they were running through. I just went outside and shot, and they never came back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and coyotes, you don't want to kill them because then their litters get bigger. So.
What about a dog?
Well, if we had a dog,
mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, well, there's that. Yeah, and then you got another animal.
Yeah,
got an animal that has to go outside. Yeah, with a dog, I don't think a cat would come around at all. I don't think the mountain lion would entertain coming around. Not that a mountain lion's afraid of a dog, but a mountain lion is an opportunist. They stalk, and they bide their time, and they sneak up from behind, and they don't like to be seen. So. Coyotes will try to coax you. So let's say we had a female dog, the coyotes, and we didn't spare, and the coyotes would try to coax her out to mate with her, and then they would eat her. Oh. And if it was a male, they would send a female in, and they would try to coax the female coyote would try and coax the male to come out. They are
the trickster, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And as he was trying to mate, or they would allow to mate, how dogs get stuck together, then they would kill the dog. Mm. But if you had a dog that was a killer, like a Malinois or a Pit Bull or a German Shepherd or something like that.
I saw the cutest German Shepherd mix puppy the other day.
Oh, yeah, puppies, yeah. Yeah, they're kind of dopey. They're kind of a little bit floppy, and yeah.
Yeah, this one was.
When they're a pup.
Yeah, it was a herder working dog mix. I'm like, well, that's to keep the chickens in line, and.
Yeah, those Australian shepherds herding dogs. Oh my gosh, man! I watched one herd up some sheep the other day.
Yeah.
The guy pulls up on his four-wheeler. He walks over. He opens the gate, and the dog's sitting on the back of the four-wheeler, just sitting there. And then he gives the command, like, yep. And the dog jumps. And the dog is
flying
like a cheetah, just gone. And going so fast and turning at full speed. I mean, making almost 90-degree corners at full speed. And it's in a pasture, so it's getting good traction, right? And the sheep are just like, oh, they all kind of get stiff, and they watch where he's going. And it was a her, and just back and forth, got all the sheep out of the pasture in 30 seconds.
Wow.
I mean, just so fast. And then the guy gives the command, and the dog runs out and hops back at a crate on the back of the four-wheeler, just hops up and sits in the crate. and she's all like wiggling and shaking her butt and just like, ah. They don't have tails, but if she had a tail, it would have been whipping both of her sides. She was so excited that she got to do her job.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, good girl. Mm-hmm. And she's just like, she's just so excited. And that type of thing is cool. When you see that, and it takes time, and dogs don't live forever. They're going to outlive your stock animals because, a lot of times yearly you're getting rid of your animals, taking them to the butcher. And,
depending on what they're.
Yeah, I mean, the sheep will be there longer because usually they're shearing them and getting the wool and that kind of thing. But okay, back to our greenhouse.
Well, also we have old kitties that we're considering, not upsetting the apple cart, so to speak, with a puppy around.
Yeah, we probably couldn't get a puppy right now. Maybe next year, but we'll see what we need. Yeah. We know if we have chickens, we don't need anything. We don't need prevention. We are prevention,
Yeah, we're out and about enough, with enough activity on the property.
Yeah. And you have to watch. I mean, I got a fox a few years ago that was hiding in the weeds, And I just happened to look out my office window and looked like directly into the eyes of this fox hiding in the grass. And I was like, holy cow, and I was on alert, because I'm watching the chickens. I'm just making sure. And you watch the chickens and you watch their movement, right? And there was like one chicken on the ramp going into all the chickens were in the coop.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, that's the worst place for them if a fox comes in.
Yeah.
The fox in the hen house, right? That's the old saying. And
Well, like just to clarify, so we work and live on the same property, and so that's really conducive for keeping an eye on things.
and it's the best thing. And we're going to talk about that later. The business side of it, we're going to actually offer tours and maybe even classes about what we do and how we do it and how to set up everything. Everything from your egg production to your taxes. I mean, there's a lot of benefit. There's major benefit in the sense that you're doing something together, sharing the chores, sharing the time, going out to the chickens together and walking around and excuse me, just talking about it, being out there. It's a fun experience.
Yeah.
And then going into the greenhouse. We'll talk about the greenhouse now. We ordered our greenhouse from climapod.com, and you can check them out. And our greenhouse is a 9x22.
Which you say is actually an extension on their base model, which is a pretty
9x14 is the basic. Ours is a 9x21. It's a polycarb. It's got 6 millimeter thick polycarbonate sides, aluminum structure framework, and we bought the deluxe model and the complete model they call it, and that has everything from temperature controlled automatic opening windows, temperature controlled fan, to keep your greenhouse as regulated as you possibly can. And it's all run off of solar panels, so it's independent. You don't need to run electricity to it. I'll be hanging some lights in there for you and for me that have battery. So I'll figure out, I'll rig it up to the solar panel, or I'll just put another one on there. So the batteries will charge all day, and in the evening, if we're in there, or early morning working before the sun comes up, we'll be able to turn on a light or two and be able to work, because it's not always convenient to work during daylight hours.
Yeah. And especially in the winter when, we get less than 12 hours. I think it cuts down to 8.
Right.
So something that we need to figure out is heat source.
Well, why don't you talk about the strategy as to why we're having a greenhouse first? Because we have spectacular growing season in Minnesota, and our soil is so good that our crops grow really great, really fast.
We have done really well on the land here when we have had gardens, and it was just wonderful to see yesterday too the variety of herbs that we have in the land next to us that has grown wild. We haven't had a garden for a few years, so things will. Well, I was really glad to see how few thistles. Actually, we have much fewer thistles than we used to have, and man, that's. There are weeds, and I'll put in quotes weeds because many of them are herbs and very helpful. But years ago, and until recently, we had a ton of thistles out there, and that's just inconvenient because they're pokey and difficult to get rid of. So that was nice, a nice change to see. But so we don't get into on purpose socio-political pop culture stuff here. There's enough of that out there. But the most that I'll say is, and anyone, we've all lived through, the COVID time, and stuff is still going on, and things are really uncertain. I work with really renowned, amazing astrologers. I listen to a lot of astrology stuff, and there are signs of continued distress in resources. So there's and we have seen it already in the supply chain.
Yeah.
Since the start of COVID and since. and for multiple reasons. And it can be from natural disaster, but we've
Well, our government is talking about potential food shortages.
so the
So,
government is talking about it.
right.
It's probably something to be
And
aware
we
of.
do know by hearing from some farmers that farmers are being paid to destroy their crops. So, and they don't have a choice.
So we're not going to go into detail because I'm not trying to hint at
Well,
you.
everybody can find it out on their own, and lots of people are hearing it, and we're not saying anything nobody knows. I think, with the ubiquity of the technology and the ability to look at anything on the planet nowadays, everybody can figure out their own stuff and their own path. And what we're doing is we're just implementing it.
Yep.
We've always had stores of food, freezers, shelves, water filtration, generators. We've always had that kind of stuff. And, we make sure that we're able to survive at least 3-4 months without power, without food from the outside, that kind of stuff. And that's something everybody should do. If you live in an apartment, I kind of feel sorry for you, but,
Yeah.
you could still have a freezer. You could still, or have a plan with your relatives, If you don't have an active plan with your relatives, then, get one.
Yeah.
Have somebody, if something power goes out in the city, that you can go to somebody's house and make sure that you have some skills that are, you're
Worth trading.
You're somebody that can do something, even if it's just starting a fire, how to start a fire in the woods without matches and lighters or strike sticks, that kind of stuff.
So we've always been preppers to a certain degree, and we've really monitored the environment to see to what degree we felt that we needed to prepare. And
Well, being prepared is different than prepping for catastrophe.
yes.
You know,
And we felt that this year, from all that we've seen going on, that it would be a wise move to have a greenhouse. So we're in Minnesota, we're in growing zone, I think we're in 4A or 3B. So it's pretty cold. You don't have, you're not growing stuff all year long unless you have a greenhouse. And so with the greenhouse, I'll get back to this more specifically. Why a greenhouse? Well, it extends our growing season. So if there are interruptions in the supply chain, we can still grow our own fresh produce, which is important to have fresh vegetables. So
in Minnesota, you can start it earlier and you can finish later, and you can grow cold weather crops. And we could use the greenhouse itself will warm on its own with the sun.
Yeah.
It will get cold and it will get freezing inside if we don't do something with it. But and we got to test. I don't know that it's going to be, 6 millimeter is, almost a 1/4 inch thick. It might not be feasible that we heat it, or maybe we're doing a layer on the ground that's kind of like compost, with straw and that kind of stuff, and
yeah.
and you get some heat from that starting to degrade. So
I did speak with someone who's really into permaculture, and she was saying that some people do a compost bin within the greenhouse for that purpose.
right.
That becomes the heat source.
Yeah. And we could put a couple of heat lamps in. We could do a couple things like that.
Yep. So the purpose is to extend our growing season. So those who don't know what cold weather crops are, those are crops that grow typically in a northern climate would be the spring and the fall. Well, that would be in a southern climate too, but so in your cooler seasons, so lettuces, peas, your brassica family, so that's cabbage and broccoli, your favorites, kale. You can do peas, which are such a treat.
Yeah, and nutritious
spinach.
and protein and all that kind of stuff. So
Spinach would be another cool weather. Carrots, radishes,
yeah.
And so you can have a good variety of fresh produce. So if there is an interruption to the supply chain, you can provide your own fresh produce throughout the winter. The other thing is starting seeds. So if all HE double hockey stick breaks loose, remember that one? You can start your own seeds, because if half the population, remember when well, we've seen supply issues last year, especially canning supplies flew off the shelf. This year, you still can't get lids and bands for the canning supplies because everybody's like, well,
Buy them up.
buy them up.
Oh, I went and bought a new freezer recently, and I only found 2 in Minneapolis, so of a larger size, and that's.
And normally you'd be able to find one right in town here.
Oh, no, yeah.
Multiples.
Right. We're in a very large town for the area,
Yeah.
and we have Sears, and we have a Menards, and
We even have a Walmart.
well,
And a Target.
Everybody's got a Walmart. But we have, I mean, there was some smaller freezers at Runnings the other day when I was in there, but not
the small ones.
not big ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can start your seeds earlier because, like I was saying, if all heck breaks loose, everybody's gonna be like, we should be starting a garden.
Yeah.
and going for started plants.
Yeah.
So being able to start your own plants is just another big step in self-sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be, if you're growing your own stuff anyways to start with.
Yep.
And then you can also start the plants, specifically the ones that you want. So, usually there's a really good variety of tomato plants that you can get, but maybe you want a specific, well, squash you don't need to start early, but maybe you want something specific, and you can start that or even reuse your own seeds. So those are the 2 primary benefits.
Yep.
I would say. Those, don't you say? Those are primary reasons.
Starting early, going late, and then testing. I mean, we'll be able to test all year doing our own. Maybe we save some seeds, and then we try those seeds, and we, how to save seeds, how to store seeds, that kind of stuff. We're going to do all that kind of thing, yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out many other uses as we go along, which we'll share. I was actually really excited after we were done walking the property, in the sense that, we've always worked together on stuff, but it's primarily been like business stuff. Mm-hmm. And so you see the results, but it's different than when you're working on something physically together. And, that's exciting to me as we were walking around talking about what to clean up, what to, the property will just generally look better, I think, as well as we go along. And to see that, I'm even just at the prospect of seeing that change, I think is really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a little bit about the greenhouse. Just to give everybody, go to climapod.com and check out the greenhouses. You don't need such a big one. We're doing a bigger one because of the different things we're going to do. And you don't actually need a greenhouse to have a garden.
Well, it depends on where you live too, and what your purposes are.
Right.
If you're just, yeah. So if you live more south, you could get by with a simpler, less expensive.
Yeah, and it's kind of a posh thing, So it's if you're in the south in the heat, and you could grow all season long in your greenhouse, and then all your stuff is protected. Automatically. It's like a fence.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and we're bringing in so our homesteading physical fitness is we work out. We have several methods of working out in house, out of house. We do martial arts together. We ride mountain bike together, and we're bringing in a sauna. That's coming soon too. So we've got some outdoor work to do. I'm going to build a platform so that we have kind of a nice decking area to sit after the sauna or before, or come out in the middle and cool off a little bit and then go back in. You talked about wanting a shower next to the sauna, so we'll probably do that. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, one that just hooks up to the garden hose so you can rinse in cold water.
Yeah, and you wouldn't do it in the winter. So having a sauna or having a shower in the winter, we wouldn't be able to. We wouldn't want to do it because we could jump in the snow.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get plenty of snow. as well. But we're going to post pictures on our Instagram
Mhm.
and the Facebook group
Of
so
our
that you
project,
can see some
progress.
details of the project. Because, for example, with the greenhouse, going back to the greenhouse, it needs a specific, or we're going to put in a specific foundation, and not like a concrete foundation. We talked about gravel,
Yeah.
and kind of having its own area, or what would you?
Yep. I'm going to build a 2x12 frame. So the greenhouse will be sitting on the top of the 2x12s. So if we want it to be almost a foot taller, hey, there's Starry. You awake, Star?
Yep.
We can make the greenhouse a foot taller, or if we put it into the ground, we have a very flat area where we're putting it, so
Yeah, fortunately, it's already quite flat.
it'll probably just be on the surface, and then we'll drive stakes in, and we'll bolt the 2x12s to the stakes, because you don't want your greenhouse blowing away in the wind,
Yeah.
or being tipped over in any way.
Fortunately, it's going to be in an area where it's blocked to the west by trees and from the north by a big building.
Yep.
So it'll be less prone.
Yeah, not much wind. I mean, the only thing that'll take it out really is a tornado, and you're not. If a tornado comes through, nothing survives, so you don't have any choice. But yeah, it's just a easy 2x12 framework.
And then do we fill that with gravel? Is that the
No, we
idea?
don't have to fill it. We can just have ramp in and ramp out, so we can put a little, because the door would be higher, if that's what you're thinking, on the greenhouse, because it comes with a door. Sorry, the door is yeah.
Slide.
But we could just do a ramp in, ramp out. We could do that with gravel or boards, either way.
Oh, I thought we were going to fill it with gravel for some reason.
Not that much. We don't need a foot.
Yeah.
No, I mean 3 inches would be fine.
So we will bring in gravel and
Gravel,
just,
red rock, whatever we decide.
Yeah.
Our parking area has gravel and red rock, and mixed in. So.
And we're going to extend the water. So there's a building that lines up that will be in line with that. But we, in order to not have to drag water from.
Well, I'm going to put a real hose on the side, which will be a retractable, really, really high end retractable hose. So when you go out there in the morning, you just grab the hose and walk out with it, and when you're done, you just reel it back up.
But it'll be one that we can use even in the winter.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you can't let it lay in the snow for too long because it'll freeze.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be in a little heated alcove on the side of the building, and so it'll be pliable. The hose will be not frozen. It'll be pliable, and you'll just walk it out, and then you run it back. You use it for 10-15 minutes, and then reel it up.
Yeah.
So
we'll show these stages.
Yeah, the progress of the project, of each little project.
Because where we're going to put the platform, so we have platforms to build, greenhouse, sauna. Because the sauna needs a platform anyways, if you're not just going to put it on the dirt, which would make it more prone to rotting. Yeah. And so we're going to put that on a platform. And in that area, there are some plants actually that I'll be transplanting. There are some wonderful herbs and even just plants that, you hate to get rid of. And so I'll be transplanting some lily of the valley, some hostas, and there's lots of violets in there, which are very good medicinal herbs. So we don't want to just tear those out. We'll put them somewhere else where they can thrive.
Yeah, you don't think about it, but if you let your yard go a little bit wild, you will find the herbs you need on your property. And we've got spectacular herbage.
We have a phenomenal.
Well, first of all, we have a gigantic sumac.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Sumac area. A grove of sumac.
So what is this, 6 acres total with your parents? So your parents live next door, and so there are technically 2 properties here, but all together.
Yep.
So this is an amazing list, and if you want to learn more about herbs that in North America in particular, it would, and Europe. These herbs exist in a lot of parts of Europe as well. Go to the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism.com, And in all courses, find the plant walks courses. It made this during the COVID era with local amazing herbalist Lise Wolf, had a ton of fun. It was just one of those things like, COVID era was difficult in and of itself, but I had something really meaningful to work on and a great person to work on it with. And that was just a really quite a blessing, to not just be stuck behind the computer because that's what a lot of us were doing.
Yeah.
So check that out because you'll learn the plants, how to use them, their medicinal uses, how to make herbal preparations. Just a ton of fun in short videos, really clear footage, so you can really get a good eye on things.
Well, and you guys did the plant walks in the neighborhoods in Minneapolis.
Yep.
So you were literally walking down the sidewalk and finding herbs along people's homes, along the sidewalk, in parks.
So you don't have to be in the country, is the point.
You don't have to have a huge acreage.
Yeah.
I mean, we went down there and Lise showed us a mulberry tree, and we stood there and ate mulberries for a half hour off a tree in the middle of Minneapolis.
And you want to check your local regulations, because a lot of times public property will have restrictions on herbal use, but apparently in Minneapolis, Lise says that because she had been chastised, I think probably more than once, for picking
By passerbys.
Yeah. She was picking some pears at one point, and she's like, "There's still plenty here." Anyways, she's a former New Yorker. She totally sweet, loving.
I'm not taking them all. You guys can have some too.
But still has that side that can be, tough when she needs to be. And so check your local regulations is what I'm saying. But apparently Minneapolis has planted a lot of these, and it is
4 people.
4 people.
Yeah.
So the point is that you don't have to live in the country to have access to a bunch of herbal remedies. But we are quite fortunate that on these 6 acres we have Solomon seal, we have sumac. These are all medicinal.
Yeah.
We have mother's wort. I think it's black cohosh that I found. We have violets, and I'm visually going through the yard at this point. Burdock, yellow dock, goldenrod,
plantain.
Found mallow the other day, marshmallow.
Yeah.
And that is so useful.
Grape. We have wild grapes.
Lady's thumb or smartweed. It's actually medicinal as well. Yeah. What else? Well, just the linden trees or the basswood trees on the property, oak trees are medicinal. So, I mean, we have so much dandelion. Don't overlook dandelion. Prickly lettuce. We have so many medicinal plants on this property. It is just, and nettles.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of Lise, her website is herbalistlisewolf.com. And Wolf has two F's.
Lise is L-I-S-E.
L-I-S-E. herbalistlisewolf.com, and you can find her plant walks on the Matthew Wood Institute right off of her website, and her other things she's doing, classes, that type of thing. But yeah, you can watch the live online or the online classes right from her website. It'll take you to the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. And yeah, I mean, imagine finding all the herbs you need in the city. And then
it's incredible.
Imagine going to the country. Just a quarter mile this way, we've got apples on the trail. We've got pears, or not pears. We've got plums. We've got raspberries, and all the herbs you talked about and more.
Yep. Now those, especially on state property, you don't want to be digging anything up. Generally, if you're collecting fruit, I don't know if that's as big a deal because you're not disturbing the plant.
Right, and find out about harvesting sustainably. I mean, we've gone out there and seen people like dig up whole areas, and you want to.
Mullein, we have mullein on the property.
Yeah, we have milkweed. We have, we have so many, and every plant that Tara talked about named is medicinal.
Yep. Milkweed, for example, can take care of warts.
Yep.
And
just pull off a little bit of the leaf and put some of the white milky substance on a wart if you got a planter's wart or a.
But only like twice. It is true. I've experienced this. It worked.
Yeah.
But only like you break the leaf and you only use it like once or twice, and that's it. You think that you need to keep using it, but
Yeah.
just use it once or twice, and then you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So homesteading, that's
Oh, we have dandelions too.
yeah,
Oh, did you?
yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. You were naming them off so fast. I couldn't keep up.
yeah,
And you can use every part of the dandelion,
yeah.
all the way down to the root, all the way up to the flower, the leaves, the stems, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh, did you name clover?
No, I didn't. Yep.
Red clover.
Clover is medicinal as well.
Yeah. And did you name the basswoods?
Yes.
The linden? Yeah. And we have oak. We have white oak and bur oak.
Which they can cross over. I think they're bur oak.
All of them?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Well, I didn't check every single one of them, but it's very likely.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of, weeds are not all weeds.
And trees are also plants.
Yep. Medicinal.
Yeah.
So that's, it really, it does feel good to know what you can use around you. That if the shite hits the fan, what you have available around you. And that may be, it's also your neighbors, who is in your environment.
Yeah.
What are your own local resources? Just even finding these permaculturist farmers practically in our backyard, it was such a great resource. So, like they were talking, for example, they found this amazing squash that keeps in the winter, because usually squash you can overwinter, but you need to put it in a cool, like a cellar.
Yeah.
But this is a shelf stable, so it will keep throughout. She said they ate like their last one from their previous year in like maybe May or June of this last, and that's so unheard of for a squash. But the drawback about squashes is when you plant them in your garden, they will crossbreed, and so you can't use the same seeds then for the next year. But what you could do is, for example, they do really well with those squashes, and so I love spaghetti squash. It's a gluten-free way to really enjoy spaghetti.
Yeah.
And so I could plant spaghetti squashes and we could trade. And so even within your own community, knowing who you can work with.
Now you said gluten-free, but you have eaten the Italian noodles, which come from a GMO-free environment and a low gluten wheat. It's a heritage or an heirloom wheat because they don't allow GMOs and the high energy wheat that America crossed, whoever did it, with a Japanese wheat that put more energy into the fruit and caused people to start having wheat allergies and wheat issues. And we think that the gluten might actually be a glyphosate problem.
There's plenty of evidence,
In the
check it
American
out for
crops,
yourself,
yeah.
that the glyphosate that is used on the crops is
Actually,
altering
the irritant.
is disturbing the microbiome, so all the little helpful critters in the soil, but likewise it disturbs our gut biome, the good bacteria that actually helps us to process the majority of the nutrients
Yeah.
in our body.
There has been evidence of people of ill health that their gut bacteria has switched because they're eating so many products with glyphosate that their body starts producing the herbicide. And they're of very ill health and don't have a very good diet. So as close to the ground as you can get and as away from as many chemicals as you can stay away from.
Yeah, for example, we do live next to fields, and that's not ideal.
Right.
But you do what you can. So like when the farmer is spraying, we close all the windows. The chickens will be hurried into the coop. So that, because there are some areas that are rather close to.
And our farmers are they will spray on a non-windy day. They will spray when the wind is going in a direction opposite the homes. They're very considerate. So.
Which is about the best you can hope for.
Right.
But it's interesting because we claimed back some land there is a good half acre or acre being rented out to the farmer, and this year we claimed that back, and it took a long time for the weeds to come back. And
we planted and tons of plants came back, and we got some grasses and alfalfa, but not many. The natural environment for it to come back, the soil decides what it needs, because what can grow there will grow there. And so we're repopulating the soil with worms naturally, with the calcium and the mag and all the different minerals that the soil needs. The plants are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And as you see, as when we were walking through, it's very stiff stalked plants. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure that's something that, they'll have deeper roots. They're stronger. They'll pull more minerals back into the soil, and we'll till them in or mow them down and let them compost on the ground and let it be green fertilizer. Mm-hmm. And then we'll see what comes up next year.
Yep. Yeah. And we'll have to gradually kind of redirect that as we can. We notice that certain areas that we've used in the more recent past for gardening, we're growing different weeds. You could actually see the areas that had been tilled or worked differently. And so even though we had never planted grass there, for example, there was a bunch of grasses coming up.
There's a lot of grass, and the other plants are coexisting with the grass. Usually if you have a patch of, say, goldenrod, you don't usually see grass underneath it, because it's growing out in the woods usually, or on the side of a trail or something.
So it seemed to really be reinforcing, the permaculture concept that, well, I think it's a permaculture concept, but we've seen it elsewhere, that the vegetation that grows will change depending on the soil environment. Yep. So another example would be trees. We learned on that farm tour that there are pioneer trees that grow first, and they prepare the soil for the later trees. So a pioneer tree, like the ash, the poplar, the sumac, it grows on the border and will start pushing its way out. And then much later you'll find the hardwoods, and that's in the alkaline soil.
The oaks, the elms, the ironwoods, hackleberry.
Hackleberry?
Yeah, I'll show you one of those. It's got a bark that sticks out. It sticks out about that far, and it's kind of strange when you touch it. Yeah. It's really cool. So anyway, I think we should wrap this one up.
Yeah, we've got some work to do.
Yeah. This whole time we were drinking Elderstone, which is a type of coffee from nativerootcoffee.com. And Elderstone is raised by Irvin Liz, the founder of Native Root Coffee. And on the front of the bag for the Elderstone blend is Irvin's parents.
Yeah, it's a great picture.
And they are the ones that, so those of you that don't know, open up your camera app on your iPhone, point it at a QR code, and it will show up which
app?
Just your camera.
Yeah.
Reads
like
QR.
A photo?
Yeah, reads QR codes now.
Yeah.
And then it shows you off the front of the bag. They got a QR code. See which farmers picked your beans.
That's really cool.
And pops up Anna and Isidro Liz, and we call them Mom and Dad because we spent time in their home, and they were very gracious to us. And that was in Colombia, at the top of the Andes Mountains, with the NASA tribe, because they are elders of the NASA tribe. And it's great to see their picture on the bag of coffee. And we are enjoying the Elderstone blend, which is a medium roast. And we've been drinking it this whole time, having fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right? So we'll talk to y'all later.
Yeah, we'll update you along the way. Stay tuned for photos of what we're up to.
Yep. Check us out. John Bachland on Instagram, Tara Bachland on Instagram, Baklund. And Tara is spelled Tara. And my name, John, has no H in it.
So if you're having a hard time finding us, it's because our names are spelled
That's right.
very different.
Good luck. Bye-bye.